Time to get back in the swing of things. This is the second week of our new format. You can watch the podcast version the way you always have, but you can now also hear us on 95.9 FM in Nashville, up towards Smyrna, Murfreesboro, Rutherford County. You can hear us on 107.9. It is with great pleasure that we bring back, by popular demand, Knoxville sports talk show host extraordinaire, Tony Basilio. Tony, how are you?
Doing great, George. Always great to be with you, man.
I want you to take a good look because Kelly now has a boom mic. This is big.
Yeah. I feel important now, Tony.
You should, Kelly. You've arrived.
So speaking of arrived, Tennessee goes in to the baseball tournament, the NCAA Baseball Tournament, as the number one overall seed. That in itself, quite an accomplishment. What's the excitement level in Knoxville about this?
That's off the chain. I mean, get-ins to that thing, it's a hard sellout. They're going to jam 8,000 people in there Friday night. Standing room only is over $100. I mean, I don't know. You think we'd have been doing that a couple years ago around here? This guy is, how do I put this? Well, he's the best coach on campus. With a campus full of incredible coaches. I mean, case in point, last week, George, with the SEC tournament, internally they were going to play 3 games and get out of there. You know, let their pitchers throw, and then we'll just go do our thing. And essentially what happened was Mississippi State made them mad, so they had to beat them. And then they couldn't lose to Vanderbilt 3 times in a row because you just can't do that. So if you're going to be in the championship game, you might as well go win the championship game. That's exactly what happened. This guy and his staff can't lose, George, when they're trying to lose. I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
What's your biggest concern as they go into this? Because clearly there are a bunch of teams, Northern Kentucky's probably one of them, that they'll have no trouble with. But when they get to a higher level of competition in this, what worries you the most?
We had yesterday, we got a tip from somebody inside Wake Forest's deal that, in fact, Wake Forest was going to be on the other side of Tennessee's bracket for the Super Regional. Look, I don't think the Vols are in danger this weekend. I mean, that Southern Miss team they played last year down there in the Supers only brought 2 players back, a brand new coach. Now, granted, they've got a great tradition, and I'm not going to ever speak ill of them because they've been good, very good in the sport for a long time. But they don't have pop. They don't have power. The Indiana team they're playing, they're going to go off as a 7-1 shot this weekend, which I guess, you know, if you wanted to entertain yourself, you could maybe bet some money on them. I don't know how wise that would be. Next weekend, when Nashville's own Chase Burns, because here's the thing. Wake Forest is favored, even though they're on the road at East Carolina. Right. They're favored. I mean, you look at the betting markets. In fact, they've got, I think, the six highest odds of winning the whole thing. If you look at it, Wake Forest does. And why wouldn't they? Because they've got Chase Burns, who's unbelievable. They've got a first baseman who's going to be taken in the top 5 picks. So potentially you have 2 top 5 picks there in the draft. And then a so-so baseball team around those 2 guys is essentially what Wake Forest is, which is why they're, you know, on that 16-17 line. They probably, if that would have been John Curry in the room instead of East Carolina's AD, probably what you would have seen, John Gilbert, probably you would have seen Wake Forest hosting this week instead of East Carolina. I love what they do in baseball because they make no bones about it. The guys that are on the committee, they all take care of themselves. It's like, look, if my team's on the line, they're like 4 or 5 of them. They all got in, including Florida.
Yeah, by the skin of their teeth. Gee, this just in, in a reenactment of Kentucky. We're going to put you up against Louisville in hoops. Interesting that Texas and A&M end up in a scenario where they're likely to square off this weekend. I love that.
And Georgia and Georgia Tech too, George. You know, the thing about baseball, the one criticism I have of their postseason, and I'm a latecomer to this, Billy Derrick has been on the show a few times taking me under wing when it comes to baseball. Billy's done a great job of that. Billy, I consider myself under wing, man, when you talk baseball. I want you to know that.
I appreciate it. Hopefully Kelly heard that.
You think he dumped him a resume, Kelly?
Vomit in my mouth right now. I mean, what are we doing?
You could really, Kelly, stand to learn a few things from this young man. But that said, the sport seems too insular, too regional. It seems like it's the same teams playing each other because it's so regional. And I wonder going forward if they're going to open it up a little bit, in as much as the West Coast teams. If you look, I was looking yesterday, Cal State Fullerton, George, their last World Series was 7 years ago.
Yep.
And they didn't make the field this year. West Coast baseball is a rumor. Tennessee's gotten several very good players off the West Coast. I know Vanderbilt has it all. The Southeastern Conference raids the West Coast. Think about what USC and UCLA are going to look like 4 years down the road when those kids realize in recruiting pitches, hey, go to USC and fly cross country and play half your season in East Lansing, Michigan, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in Ohio, at Rutgers, at Penn State. I mean, where do I sign up for that? A trip to Maryland? I mean, my gosh, that's a baseball mecca of the world in April. That sounds really inviting.
Listen, Rutgers in early March with a nice sleet storm.
Think about that.
Could be perfect.
I mean, think about how much more the SEC and to some extent the ACC with the warm weather and the Big 12, the foothold that they're going to have over those leagues in this sport because of that weather deal. And I don't think those leagues, the big whatever they are, they don't care about baseball. It's not why they did their deal. But I do think it's going to help shape the sport of baseball. I mean, the SEC is set up for years to come. It's really unbelievable.
Do you think baseball expands the tournament anytime soon?
You know, I don't.
The reason I ask that, you never hear that in baseball.
No, I don't think there's a reason to expand it, George. I think that's why. I don't think, first of all, there's not a monetary incentive to do so. And generally, that's where they go. If they have a monetary incentive to do something. Now, if baseball were to take off on television, which the sport is growing, you know, the numbers for the sport is growing. And I was talking about that Chase Burns deal. If Chase Burns comes back and pitches in Knoxville, George, that is something they will put on ESPN, and that will get numbers because he's a top of the draft guy. They could play up the heat. They could do some Sports Center stuff on that, and they could probably get some people tuning that thing in.
Oh, you're right. Okay, before we go to Kelly, we have reaction on Kelly's mic from Shaker. Billy, if you will, read this.
Kelly sounds like he's finally moved out of the bathroom for the broadcast. He's coming in loud and clear.
Not my fault, Shaker. Sorry. I mean, Billy's the one talking in the background. It's all his fault, so blame it on him, not me.
Billy, I'll tell you what. I mean, there's a depth, Kelly, to your voice I haven't heard before.
It's inspiring. I know.
Tony,
and I both think it's inspiring.
Hey, Tony, this is what I feel about Billy. Billy came up to my house today, and I told George before you came on, I really wanted to be mean. And once he finished, I want to say, now get out, Billy. You know, but I didn't. I was nice.
Billy's an awesome young man, y'all. He really is. He's a talent.
He is talented. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he's a talent.
But don't fill his head up like that. Tony, don't fill his head up like that. We don't need that.
George, have you heard his play-by-play? I'd love to hear his play-by-play. I bet he's very good.
Tony, George, and I have done a game together.
Really? That's cool.
I want to try to find it. It was a scrimmage. It was a high school football scrimmage. It was probably
that's
like a couple
right.
quarters.
Yeah,
George was looking at him
right.
like, really? We did? I know that age, George. I'm the same age. People walk up to me and they'll go, you remember we did? And I'll go, yeah, sure. I have no idea who you are.
It was his school against mine. It was broadcasting at its finest.
Absolutely.
Shall we now turn it over to Kelly?
Tony, you got to play it off, man. When like my kids know me inside and out. When I go up and meet somebody, or somebody comes up and says, "Hey, man, I know you," I can make them feel great. And then once they walk off, my kids say, "You had no idea who that was." I was like, "Nah, no clue," but hey, they felt good, you know.
hey, Rick Barnes. Who's the guy at Texas George, the head coach down there? Rodney
Terry.
He said they played each other this year in the NCAA tournament, and the media said, "You have any good Rick Barnes stories, like recruiting, whatever?" He said, "Yeah, I got one for you. We were in a kid's home one time." He said, and Barnes turned the charm on. He said he turned the charm on his mother now, and she had no chance. He said, we got outside. He said, I said to him, "Coach, that was incredible." And Barnes said, "Boy, I'm glad she didn't ask me the one question." And he goes, "What's that?" "What her son's name is." He said, "I couldn't remember that kid's name for the life of me."
That's terrific.
He said, "I called that kid everything but his name."
Fake it till you make it, Hoss. That's what they told me. Fake it till you make it. Okay, Billy. So let me ask you this, and I knew you alluded to this early, but what is the weakness of this team? Is there a weakness to this team?
I don't really think they have one. No.
Well, you said it was the pitching for a little bit, Tony.
I think what's happened here now that Russell's back, they grew some arms over the weekend. I went into the SEC tournament thinking that's a completely useless exercise in futility. And I came out of that admiring the fact that Tennessee used it to grow people. They grew Marcus Phillips, who's an arm they're going to use in relief. They grew Dylan Loy, who's a freshman pitcher, who pitched as well as he has all year in the Southeastern Conference Final, which, I mean, you talk about first world problems, guys. Those are first world problems right there Tennessee has. I don't know that they have. The weakness they have is being the number one seed and everything that comes with that. And then the weakness that they're going to have is the pressure that they're going to put on themselves internally, because first of all, that one seed hasn't won since 1999, and that just hangs around these one seeds like an albatross for whatever reason. And then the second thing is people are saying, hey, they're the best team in the country, and there's pressure that comes with that. It's one thing to be the one seed. It's another thing for people to go, you're the best team in the country besides being the one seed. Because some years that's not the case. And so they're going to have to carry that into this deal. But the one thing Billy said still remains accurate, which is they don't have an ace. They don't have a true, I'm going to knock this thing out ace. Hand me the ball tonight. That would have been Chase Burns had he returned this year. It was Dolander the past couple of years. They don't have that now. They've had to figure out a way to mix and match with their pitching staff, but they've gotten this far and have had a remarkable year in doing so. I think it's incredible that they're the number one team in the country. I just think it's because it doesn't look like they are, but weakness-wise, I mean, they don't have a blow-away closer, but I don't know that you need that in that sport because it's not conventional baseball that we're used to watching at the major league level. They are so deep lineup-wise. They're pretty good defensively. If it were me, I would sub out the third baseman late in games. I don't know that they will. I would. He scares me. But, no, I don't think they really have weaknesses, no.
So you kind of alluded to it, Tony, talking about, a couple of years ago, they had all these expectations.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. They go into the SEC tournament. I think they were just kind of cakewalking, and then they got pissed off. And then they said, hey, we're going to win. We won the SEC regular season. Let's go ahead and win the tournament now. Yeah. I think it pissed them off, and I think that they've got a team that's kind of like that, which is kind of unbelievable. But a couple of years ago, we all talked about expectations, and I don't think they didn't play well under those expectations. But for some reason, a guy looking from the outside in, it seems like they're more equipped for that now. Maybe it's experience, but it seems like they're more equipped of the expectations that's going to fall their way of being a number one seed.
Oh, I think that's accurate. Look, that super team thing, they were number one for like 2 months. A lot of pressure. This team here has been like number one for a week, like, okay, so what? And they also know that rating when the ball first pitch happens in the postseason really means nothing. The other thing that bears saying in a forum like this is these guys haven't won anything. And so where's the pressure? It's not like you're a defending national champion. Evan Russell joins us once a week on the show, and he's excellent. And, of course, Evan caught on that super team a couple years ago. And I asked him about that Sunday when they played Notre Dame. And I said, Evan, being there and being attuned to this kind of thing, some people fluff this off. I don't. It felt like Tennessee's crowd, when that kid fisted that ball out to right field, Tennessee's crowd knew this thing's done. You could just feel it. You could feel the air go out of the place. I said, Evan, can a team sense that? Because I think the Braves have done that to their players down through the years, transferred that pressure onto them. I really do. I think when a crowd has an expectation that something bad's about to happen, something bad's about to happen. And I don't know why that is, but he said, Tony, that day that's the first time all year we felt anything like that in our dugout. He said, and it was really eerie the day Notre Dame beat them. And that's what's got to happen this time around. If Tennessee's going to be eliminated before they get to Omaha, they've got to almost get in their own way, because this team's too good to lose in their building.
I've asked you this before, and I'm going to ask you again because we got people listening on the radio, but I don't think I've ever seen a team, and I use this all the time with coaches. Even when I coached over at Riverdale in high school, I told our head coach, a team takes on your personality. So
yeah.
you can't be up and down. You kind of got to be even keel. I know you're an up guy, but you got to be even keel. But I don't think I've ever seen a team, Tony, that takes on the persona of their coach like this team here. I mean, they've got that quiet, as a new age term, swag about them, just like their coach does. Like, okay, it doesn't matter what you do, we're still going to beat your butt. And that's kind of what it seems like to me.
Well, I think that's a great observation. And the thing about Tony is when he handles his players. So the other night we were doing our post game after the show was over, and Dave Serrano called us, who was the coach before Tony.
Oh, wow.
Surprised us. Dave's son's first base coach on this team. Dave said, you have no idea how happy I am that my son's getting to experience that. You have no idea how happy I am at Tennessee Baseball's getting to experience this. He said, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I failed. He said, you know what? There's a lot of people in a lot of arenas that put their hat in the ring and it doesn't work out. He said, and I'm one of them. He said, but I'll tell you this about Tony. He said, the way he communicates with his players and the way everybody in their organization comports themselves with their players is the reason that it comes out on the field the way it comes out. He said, I'm just going to tell you. He said, this guy, he said, yes, they've got very good players. He said, but they've got a sense of togetherness in their deal. He said, that's really hard to find. He said, where else can you see in the country guys sit and wait their turn, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 years? He said, today, 2024, that's unheard of. And, he's right. And Tony, when he comes on, like with me or does interviews, he'll say, we're all teammates. Now, Kelly, did you ever have a head coach say that?
No.
And his kids know he means that. Like the other day, if you watch that incident that happened with, that almost got really ugly with them in Mississippi State, that night it kind of woke the Vols up, If you watch that incident, first of all, the opposing team is chanting his name. They're taunting him. They're going, Tony, Tony, Tony. They're just taunting him because they didn't have a pitcher warmed up. That was the backstory on that deal. And so Mississippi State, and then Drew Beam told a friend of mine, he said, I don't like the fact that I gave the lead up, and we could have been out of the inning a couple times, like a call and then a foul tip that went through the catcher's glove. But those things happen in baseball. And he said, look, I didn't handle it well. He said, but I will tell you this, the mayhem and the craziness when I was walking off the mound, he said, that's what it's all about. Like, these guys love that. They love that everybody hates them. They love that they're seen like the Broad Street Bullies were in hockey when I was a kid, those old Flyer teams. Everybody hated them. They love, like, and I love Billy. You know, you guys know Billy. I treat him like a kid. But Tony Vitello, a.k.a. Tony Vols, lives rent-free in Billy's head as a Vanderbilt fan. And I love Billy. Listen, I'm for Billy. I'm not against Billy. But that's the deal with Tony. Tony triggers and melts all these people. And his kids love it. Drew Beam said it was totally, completely fun. He said, I did not like giving up that lead as a competitor.
Billy, did you hear what he said?
But he loved the moment. Loved it.
Tony V is in your head.
Rent-free. Living there.
Rent-free. I like it.
I love it.
Okay. For a new audience, maybe that has not watched you the way we have for a couple of years, tell them how they can listen to your stuff, and in particular, what will you do around Tennessee's baseball games?
Well, first of all, our Friday shows are going to be at Calhoun's on the river, so we're going to be right in the epicenter of it. We're already planning, if they get to Omaha, to do our live show. We're going to do post-game shows after each and every Tennessee game. We're already planning to do a post-game show down there live, so people can leave the stadium and come over there and celebrate till the wee small hours of the morning. Because God knows I need to miss a little more sleep. So, I mean, if you look at me. So, tclub.team is our website. That's the easiest way to find me, tclub.team, tclub.team. Tomorrow we're going to have like 3,000 words on Tennessee football recruiting. Now that we're heading into the month of June here shortly, that's going to be a huge month for the future of Tennessee's football program. So we have all, George, back in the day, do you remember how sleepy and boring the summer months were?
Yes. It's gotten a lot better.
Anymore. It's not like that anymore. No.
Hey, thank you as always.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.